Speed Traveler Formula One Deep Dive was not disappointed by the Miami Grand Prix today. What a race.
Yeah, and your pick, Lando Norris, and our good friend Zach Brown, who runs the McLaren team, amazing victory.
Unbelievable. What a great usage of tire management. I mean, Lando Norris and also Piastri were just driving the wheels off those tires. They made him perform better than anybody else. They were able to go long. Subsequently, the safety car came out. That was all that Lando Norris needed to take the lead. But from there, he drove away from the field.
Yeah, I said it earlier. He disappeared like a scolded cat, and he was just gone. And I think that's what was amazing is I think everyone expected Max to just catch him and blow by him in that Adrian Newey designed car down the back straightaway. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. It's exactly what I was fearful of with the restart on the yellow flag. Because they're all line astern, nose astern there, and honestly, Lando Norris handled it like a professional. He did not cave to the pressure that Max Verstappen applied. We saw great battles going on beyond that. What a great race for the Miami Grand Prix and the fans.
We touched upon it a little earlier in the pre-race show, and that was that the Red Bulls, they weren't happy with their rear tires were overheating. So Max had used mediums in yesterday's race, and those tires got really hot. And about 15 laps in, he was all over the place, and they knew that was going to be a problem, and it happened.
It sure did. And you know what? Zach Brown, McLaren, another big victory. I wonder if Zach is getting a new tattoo to go with his Monza tattoo.
He just mentioned he is getting one.
Yeah, did he? Oh, great.
One thing I want to talk about is Mercedes was really nowhere. It's so weird that the McLaren car uses the Mercedes engine, and yet Mercedes had no power down the straightaway. So how in the world did McLaren do that?
Well, that all goes right down to the chassis, because Lewis Hamilton was complaining about slow speed corners at this track the whole time. They were not happy with the chassis, let alone the speed. I mean, we heard Lewis Hamilton and George Russell complain about the top end speed on the straightaways, but they're also complaining about the handling in the corners, and that just goes right down to the chassis, and McLaren got it right. They're making the best use out of the Mercedes engine. They're doing better than any other team in the peloton.
Yeah.
In the field. So it's really great to see. One, this is the first time in a number of years we've had more than like 2 winners in a race.
Yeah.
We've got Max Verstappen, who's been dominant. Then Carlos Sainz comes in after having his appendix taken out and wins the race.
Right.
And now here with an incredible drive, Lando Norris for McLaren takes the win. But I gotta agree. I mean, Lando Norris is going to get drive of the day, but you mentioned Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton really drove the wheels off that car to put it into 6th place.
Yeah,
gotta give that guy credit.
All weekend. He battled all day yesterday with the Haas team. And we're going to get to the Haas team in a minute here. But he battled all day with the Haas team yesterday, and he did drive the wheels off. He ended up 6th. Russell ended up 8th. That's about the best they could have done. And I mean, it really should have been 10th and 12th.
Really
and it was only because those guys were driving so well today.
Yeah.
So we talked about the big winners. Let's talk about the big losers for the weekend. And the aforementioned Haas team. I had big hopes for the Haas team. That's the only American-made manufacturer in the field right now. I had high hopes for them, but man, they just faded after about lap 15, didn't they?
They actually did, in my opinion, better than I expected, because the Haas, we see Nico Hülkenberg drive the wheels off that car, get in the car into Q3, getting into points-paying positions, and we know, though, that the Haas, after about 6 laps, just starts to fade every single race. So I was really hopeful for the first few laps, and Nico Hülkenberg showed some speed, but then ultimately just faded. Also, I think the safety car affected a lot of teams negatively. Another big loser for me has to be the Aston Martin team.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we didn't hear word one from them all weekend long in the way of any form
and
of
yesterday's sprint race basically took out both cars. Lap 1, Lewis Hamilton slid into both of them, and they were just playing catch up all weekend. They had new parts on parts on both cars.
Both cars.
And they just couldn't make that work this weekend.
Well, I mean, in the race, Lando Norris lost all those new parts because they were destroyed when Hamilton ran right into him, speared him in the side pod, and bent up his front suspension. So they didn't have enough spare parts to put on the new
for Lance.
Yeah. But that doesn't explain Fernando Alonso. Three-time world champion, and
back in 10th place.
Back in 10th place. It's just sad to see that happen. with the Aston Martin, because we have high hopes for them. I mean, if there was a team that I'd like to see Adrian Newey land on, it would be the Aston Martin team, particularly since Aston Martin's going to have the Honda that has been all dominant with the Red Bull team next year.
And we have to talk a little bit about the yellow flag. That was the turning point of the race. It was the American driver, Logan Sargent, and he was alongside, I don't think it was Hulkenberg, I think it was Magnussen.
It was Magnussen.
And neither of them would give way, and of course poor Logan Sargent in his home Grand Prix goes into the wall. But it caused the yellow, and because Lando Norris had run long and stayed out there on those tires, he was able to get in and out of the pits before anyone else could catch him.
Yeah.
And really, that was the turning point of the race.
100%. But again, even at that point, Lando Norris drove away from the field.
Yeah, he did.
He had much fresher tires, and to your tire degradation point with the Red Bulls, he was able to drive that car just much faster, running purple lap times consistently. We even talked about during the race, man, he kept put like 6 laps in a row,
right.
Put up purple laps and go, is he going to have any tires left for the end
Yeah.
of the race? We started getting nervous.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what Zach Brown was doing. That foot must have been bouncing like crazy.
Piastri was putting in fast laps as well, so the McLaren clearly had a lot of pace this weekend.
Yes.
So we've got the Imola, Grand Prix of Imola. What did you call it? The Autozona de Circuit International. Enzo
Edino, yeah, Ferrari.
Yeah.
And it's great to be going to Imola next year or this year again, because last year it was unfortunately canceled due to just massive rainstorms and flooding. And it's a storied track, and it's an amazing track. If you ever played it on any of your driving simulators, It's a very, very challenging track to drive.
It has a long front straightaway, and that's really going to be to the benefit of the Ferraris and the McLarens. Might be a tough weekend again for the all-conquering Red Bull Max Verstappen.
I would agree with that, and I would also say that being in Italy, the Ferraris are going to have something extra special planned for their cars. They're definitely coming to the track with special upgrades. They're really gonna push to win the race, and they have to, because now with McLaren showing that they can win races and chasing them for the points, it's going to be very, very tight at the front end of the constructors and the drivers' championships now.
It sure is. Final thoughts on Miami?
So far, best race of the season.
Yeah, I agree. And it was very unexpected.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't that unexpected, because we knew Red Bull was having some trouble, but everyone expects Max to just go out there and blow doors. In the first segment of the race, I thought that's the way it was going to go.
Yeah.
And then look what happened. We got that yellow flag, perfect timing, and Lando scores the big maiden victory.
Maiden victory for Lando Norris, and I'm so happy that I chose him. It was a hard pit for me because I was vacillating between the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. You chose Charles Leclerc, who ended up on the podium as well.
You did.
And by the way, someone's going to have to check this for us. I don't know when the last time we had 3 different teams on the podium, in a Formula One race. It's usually 2 Red Bulls or 2 Ferraris, with somebody else, or 2 Mercedes with somebody else. But this was 3 different constructors on the podium. And I got to tell you, it was awesome to see a Ferrari, a McLaren, and the Red Bull on the podium.
Yeah, it really was. We haven't mentioned our host bar today. It's the Britannia in Santa Monica. Great bar owned by by the Canes. And they've been so nice. So it's actually Cinco de Mayo, so cheers, buddy.
Cheers! That's right.
All right, so thank you so much for tuning in to the Speed Traveler Formula One Deep Dive. We are going to be back in 2 weeks, correct?
Correct.
For the Imola Grand Prix, and we'll see you then. Thanks for joining.